Welcome back to Title Talks. Today's conversation is a little different from what we usually do here. We're not talking sales, marketing, or operations. We're talking about leadership and what it actually takes to become one, regardless of what your title says. My guest today is Susan Stewart-Magana. She spent more than 25 years in title across underwriting and agency operations. She's currently an agency sales executive with AmTrust Title Insurance. She spent 5 years as a professor of business, marketing, and communications, and she's the founder of Her Title Collective, a community built around mentorship and authentic leadership in our industry. Susan, welcome.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Of course. One thing that really stood out to me, Susan, and some of the writing that you've done was this idea that leadership isn't something you wait for, it's something that you choose. That's a pretty different way of looking at it than most people grow up with, I guess.
Yeah, I think that when I was younger, especially early on in the industry, you're kind of taught that you have to wait your turn. You have to, wait until you're offered the leadership, right? And in reality, I've learned throughout my career that, when I just take something on and I take the leadership and I go with it, it always surprises me how well it turns out or how waiting for it's never gonna happen, and so
Right.
leadership, you start to learn how having a great idea or having an initiative or a grit that just takes you and you just go with it, are impressed with you by that, and I think when I started teaching social media, it was like 2008 when I started teaching social media.
Mhm.
And I remember people used to say to me, "Well, how'd you learn all this?" And "Who gave you permission to be a teacher and expert in this?" And I was like, "Well, I just learned everything I could and started teaching it. Started teaching what I knew." And I think that's the key to leadership or being a good, instructor or trainer is just learning all that you can and sharing what you learn. And not being afraid or waiting for someone to say, "Okay, you have this title, now you can, utilize your
Right.
leadership skills."
Right. And along those lines, we tend to think of leadership as something that comes with a promotion, right? A
Yeah,
title
yeah.
or direct reports. But as you're arguing, it starts way before that. What does that actually look like day to day in a business like ours that runs on relationships and trust?
Yeah, I think that a big part of it is, for me, always be learning, you know what I mean? Always be trying to be better and learn more, and from that, you get excited about new ideas that you're learning, and you wanna share them with other people, and so that excitement translates into a movement or a leadership role that maybe you don't expect to happen, right? Like, I feel like that's kind of what happened with Her Collective and how that
Hmm.
started and how it grew. I never expected it, honestly, to go where it did or to take the path that it did, and it was just a desire and this deep, belief in wanting to share the stories of all the women that, trained me up in the industry or helped me become better, and the more I learned, the more I wanted to share that with others.
Was there a moment, it's like a specific moment early in your career where you watched someone else lead without having that title that kind of inspired you?
I'm the youngest of 7 kids, so learned very young, uh, to just I kinda did my own thing, All my siblings were so busy and so much
Hmm.
older than me, and so I kind of almost always had that built in me just from my child without realizing it, and then when I got into title insurance, I was mostly with smaller companies, more boutique companies, so they had a specific message, they had a specific niche, those kinda things, and I really thrived in those. I've worked at some of the bigger corporations, and I just didn't thrive there. Like, I think being able to have more autonomy and having a louder voice in those smaller, especially emerging companies taught me a
Hmm.
lot about how to take that initiative and how to, instill that confidence in yourself as well, right? Because especially as women, I think it's a prolific problem that a lot of very educated, very well, high level women may have the title or whatever, they still don't have that confidence and they still doubt themselves, right? And I think from the early on years in my title career, going through those patterns of not being sure of myself or not feeling like, am I in the right place? Am I really
Yeah.
making a difference in my job? Am I getting better? I think that's what helped me because I was in a smaller, companies mostly. and there's availability to really explore your talents and bring what you have to the table because there's less voices, right? And there's less competition than these big corporate companies that it's easy to feel, lost in sometimes. So I think early on, it really helped me to have that and have that perspective as I grew and got into bigger companies and things like that. So then I had that confidence and I had that experience to know, oh, just speak up. Like people want to
Yeah.
hear what you have to say. And when you do say something, you're usually like, okay, you thought the same thing or you had the same question, right? But we
Yeah.
often downplay our own knowledge or contributions.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So you said you're the youngest of 7. I'm the second youngest of 9, actually, which is funny.
Oh, have we never talked
Yeah.
about them before.
Yeah. And there's something about leadership and speaking up and stuff like that that doesn't really come natural, right, to people like us when you grow up in a larger family and you have a
Yeah,
lot of older siblings, especially if you come from like a family of very loud people. Like
yeah,
the youngest always tends to be the quietest and you know stay still or whatever. So
it
it is interesting. And then as we've kind of grown up, it's been this moment of like, "Hey, I have a voice too," right?
yeah, I mean, you get to a certain point, whatever your age is, I feel like, and I mean, I've read and heard more about, like, birth order, right? And so that does make
Mhm.
a difference, and when you read it, you're like, "That makes sense." Like, could you get sick of people speaking for you or making decisions for you when you're from a large family? So then at
Yes.
some point, like, I'm the youngest of 7, and we all grew up in Utah, and I was the only one that went away for college. I went to Hawaii for college, like, as far away as I could go, right? I got a
Mhm.
scholarship and I was out. And my mom was like, "What are you doing? Why are you leaving the nest like that?" And for me, it was like my way of really finding my voice, right? To be brave enough from the get-go to be like, "No, I'm gonna go have this experience." And that kind of launched me and how I was from there on out, you know? So that's it
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, that's awesome. A lot of people too they're waiting for something before they let themselves lead. They're waiting for the promotion, the certification, or like you said, someone else's permission. And so why is it that you think that we wait?
A lot of reasons for sure, but I think some of the biggest things is fear or the low self-confidence or what you think other people or how they're gonna judge you, right? And you don't want to misstep ever, especially when it comes to your career, because most people, I think they really wanna do well. Nobody wants to do bad in their career, right? Like, they wanna make a difference as well. They don't wanna just go to work every day and it doesn't matter, Like, and that's why I think a lot of us tend to fall into title too, is because you start to realize that even though you're doing the day-to-day and the operations of title, you start to learn after 5, 10 years, you're like, oh, but we're really helping people with one of the
Mhm.
biggest things in their life, right? One thing in her collective is it really started to take off because I started featuring different women all over the country every single Friday. We do what's called a Friday feature spotlight. And then they all go into the magazine every quarter that we do. And it's so funny to me because at the beginning, I would interview these women that have been in the industry like mentors to me or people that I looked up to that had been in the industry for years, 30 years. And they would answer these questions for me and bring it back. And then I'd, write up a story. And they would always say, that was really hard for me to do, and I'm like,
Mm.
really? And it's interesting the feedback that they would give me. We still have, especially as women, and it's because of a pattern, of how it's been in the workforce and the way that our culture has been for so many years. That's changing, obviously, a lot right now, but there's still that piece of women, for whatever reason, that just have that lower self confidence in general than men because we're not raised that way. We're not, the culture isn't really like that as we grew up. And so,
Mhm.
I thought it was very interesting that most of them said that, and then when I would send them I always send them their draft story to read and just review. If there's anything they don't like, we can take it out, but all of them are like, "Oh my gosh, you really made me sound important and that I had something of value to bring to this," and I'm like and that I'm really valued here. And I go, well, because you are. And you just don't know it. You get lost in the shuffle and you get so busy in your work and day life, and especially in title, especially with like the title examiners or the escrow officers or escrow assistants that are behind the scenes at the desk all day long, sometimes 10, 12-hour days, when it's busy. We know closers that have done that, and they just can
Hmm.
feel so lost in their work and unappreciated, and it's not making a difference. And so it's been such an eye opener to see how big this has been for women to really be like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much," because people don't know what we do a lot of times, and to be able to hear their story and how they got there, and a lot of times they just fell into it, and so,
Yeah.
uh, it's very interesting to understand that dynamic with the confidence and the culture and how to even the experienced ones still were like, "Wow, I didn't realize I had that impact," and I think when you finally hear that from somebody else, it builds that confidence. Then you automatically just start to take on leadership roles naturally, right?
Yeah, I mean, and on the topic of confidence, you talk a lot about the gap between being capable and actually believing you're capable. Where do you think that gap comes from?
I think it comes from culturally how we were raised, how our families are, like we talked about the birth order,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And really it's evolving and changing for sure. But the interesting thing is I read the Confidence Code book, which when you read that, I didn't necessarily know it was going to be targeted mostly for women in the professional world, and it is. And with
Hmm.
the studies that they did at universities, a lot of professors did these studies, some in Cambridge and England, and then some here in the US, like Stanford did some. And it's very interesting to me that they did a questionnaire test for all these seniors in their MBA program. And they didn't really know what this was gonna be about, right? And it's interesting because the men always performed higher by, like, 20%. Like, they would get, like, around 80%, and the women would get around 60%. And the professors were like, "Well, why is that happening? We don't understand." And the big thing that they discovered when they went back over all these tests, and he did it semester after semester, right? And so, he started to realize that women, they just if they didn't know the answer, they just wouldn't even answer it. Like, they wouldn't even put their foot in.
Mm.
Or men, they tend to just, "Oh, if it's not it, that's fine, we'll just move on." But women have this, perfection pressure, to be perfect. They wanna everything has to look perfect. They have to be perfect. They have to do well in school. They have to all those to be the perfect mom. They have to do
Yeah.
all the things, right? And so if they don't feel 100% positive on it, they just won't even answer the question. And so that is why they scored less. So then he started doing the tests again, but he would do both. And he would say, "You have to answer all the questions," to the women. And they scored the same as the men on the second round, which you don't really think that that's happening, but it is. Like in a board meeting or a sales meeting or whatever, you tend to see women shy back and they won't respond or take that leap and say something unless they're more 90, at least 95% sure, right? Where
Yes.
men tend to respond either way. And they're like, "Oh, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work." They don't get
Hmm.
afraid of the fear of sounding wrong or being wrong as much as women do. We were taught it in school from the time we were in kindergarten. We were taught it in family structures. So it's very interesting to see that dynamic change. And I think that a lot of the women's groups that have started to open and pop up in our industry specifically, we really address those things, right? We talk about being authentic and don't be afraid to speak up because oftentimes, more often than not, people are going to appreciate the words that you use and when you do speak up, right? And I think it's from experience of continually getting that message that just speak up what you have to say and it might surprise you, right? And so that's where I think women are starting to see the power in themselves and what they bring to the table from their years of experience, right? And
If you had advice for different women who are trying to build their confidence, how would you tell them they should actually build it?
well, I would say always be learning, always be coachable and always be learning because that's the one thing I learned in the very beginning of my career is I just had this hunger for learning, right? And so I'm a reader. I would read all the time, and I listened to podcasts all the time, and then I got, divorced when my kids were very, very little, and, my mom had already passed away, and so I didn't have people around me to really help me, and, I just remember feeding off everything I could to help me, right? Because I felt like I can't screw with my kids. Like, I got to figure this out. And so I read and read, and I did a lot of work around emotional intelligence as well as skill building and all those things, business wise. And that, I think, more than anything, really gave me the confidence to when I am in a room, I have something to say because I'm constantly learning. And I think in a business or in a community like the Her Collective, I think when you're constantly learning, you get excited about sharing that with people, right? And you want to help them, especially some of the younger generation. You see what they're doing, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I've been through that. This worked for me." And there's just value in how that makes you feel and how that relationship, how it makes the other person feel. And so my biggest thing is always being coachable, always learning, and that will translate into internal confidence to where and excitement to where you wanna share it with other people, you know? Like, when I was reading the confidence code, I'm like, "That's interesting, these studies that these professors were doing, because you wouldn't just on the surface be like, "I don't get it, I don't think women," you know? But then when you read them, you're like, "Oh my gosh, it's true, us women hold back, and we don't realize we hold back," you know, because it's so inbred in us through our culture and how we were raised, so it's learning for sure.
Yeah, agree. This feels like the right place to talk about Her Title Collective. What made you start it?
Oh my goodness. I think, from my early days, I always wanted a strong mentor, and I did finally get one about, I don't know, 5 years into my career, and she was phenomenal. Like, she was always just in every way, a strong, high integrity, high character woman that I'm like, okay, I finally found someone that I want to be like that. That's how I want to present myself. But I never had necessarily a group. I didn't have my family, close by, and I was a single mom for 10 years. I raised my kids by myself. I have 3 daughters, and, it would have been helpful to be able to have kind of your village around you, to
Mm.
help you navigate questions or doubts as you're going through it, because oftentimes when you're going through a learning phase in your life or a major struggle in your life, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so you don't know who to ask, and having that trust space to where you can ask questions that may sound difficult or may sound dumb was always very important to me. And we had a small text group for women, and we called it
Mhm.
Women with Drive. And just to kind of give each other these little boosts of text messages when texting was just coming out, and to be able to say, "Hey, you're doing great today," because oftentimes women don't get that in a day, right? We're so busy
Yeah.
wearing all these different hats,
Right.
and trying to do everything that it's nice to be able to have that, because women need that more than men do, I think sometimes. Um, so we started meeting just for coffee meetings and things like that, and then I moved to Texas because I got remarried, and I really wanted something as I'm new to Texas, starting to like really get my feet wet there. And so this opportunity came up to just start my own little network of women, and then really a big part of it was kind of just sharing with the community what we do. That was the second half of why I started Her, is that when I was a professor for 5 years, I was the youngest professor. I was the only one with a master's degree. The rest of them all had, PhDs and lifelong, instructors. And here I come in and to my first meeting, my department meeting, and they introduce me, and she's our insurance gal. And I'm like, oh, and they would start asking me, who, Allstate or Farmers? And I'm like, no, I'm not that kind of insurance. It's very different. And they really didn't understand or know what I did. They really didn't at all. And so that was a huge eye opener to me. Like, people don't understand what we do in title insurance. They think they do. Oh, it's where you go to that office and you sign the papers and you get keys to your house. But
Mhm.
they don't really understand beyond that, honestly. And I couldn't believe how many people in this business department didn't know what it was. And so that's kind of the second fault of being able to really reach women and create a village for women to have a trust space, empowerment space, a place to where they can help build who they are and just become better in their career is our goal and our focus at Her. And then also allowing through the magazine to showcase what it's all about. And people have these magazines in their offices all across the country, right? And so when people come into closings, they can read them and go, "Oh, I had no idea, that this is what it was." Or, um, and so it's just spreading the word of what title insurance is. And I think when you hear an authentic story of someone's journey, that it sinks in deeper than when someone just says, "Oh, this is what title insurance is," because then they're like,
Hmm.
"Okay," they don't really it doesn't really sink. So that's why that's those are our main goals, and mission is to really do those two things.
Yeah. I, e- well, I want to talk about the industry for sure. But one thing that you touched on that I want to talk about too, you talked about mentorship and having a mentor earlier on that made you start this whole thing.
Yeah.
What else has mentorship meant in your own path, and besides just receiving it, but also giving?
There's a lot that I can still learn, and I'm always feeling like I can learn, I can learn, I can learn, and, and it's so true, and so I feel like at whatever level you are at and wherever you're at, seek out people that you can feel confident or that you can trust, that you're comfortable talking to. Just a place that
Hmm.
you're like, "Help me just handle some of these ideas and some of these situations that are going on. Help me to understand how to, appropriately, resolve them," right? And I think that having women and men too. I have a lot of men in my life that were strong mentors in the business. But
Hmm.
I think having that, especially a woman too, there's just a different type of mentorship you're gonna get and a different type of empowerment you're gonna get from a woman versus a man. It's just who we are as humans, right? Men and women are
Hmm.
different. But that at every level will help you build your confidence and you can speak and practice speaking. I remember when I was first in the industry, my first mentor, like 3 years running, whenever she would do my annual review, we'd go to lunch and we go over the review and she'd be like, "You're awesome, doing awesome, awesome, awesome." And then she'd get to the end and she'd be like, "Okay, this is the only thing that you could improve on." And every single year, it was confidence. Every single year. And I'm like, "What is that? Like, what is that?" And she said, "You have the knowledge, but you doubt yourself. And I see you doubt yourself when you go to speak to people or when we go into an office and we're talking to new people, you'll hold back." And because she knew me, she knew that that's what I was doing, and I didn't
Hmm.
know if I was doing that, right? And so, I for a long time, I'm like, I just wanna be able to speak, fluently and to speak well, and because she spoke so well and she was just so polished, and so I constantly started to learn more and more and more and read more and more on how to be authentic, but also, build your knowledge so that you can have more confidence and you can share. It all kinda ties together, and so I still get mentored today, like I said, with my coaching and it's teaching me different things on, because her happened so quickly and I didn't expect it that I'm like, I need help with knowing how to, handle all these challenges because it's like a nonprofit. It's a networking, group that's like a nonprofit. It's not a business, so we're not making money.
Yeah.
We're creating a space for women to connect and feel that support and sisterhood and all those things, right? And so it's a little trickier to know how to navigate those waters, right? Especially when I wasn't planning on it. And you just kinda learn it as you go, right? And I think if you have good people around you and good mentors around you, they'll help you every step of the way. Like, I'm a part of the mentorship committee for Alta, and,
Hmm.
I went up to Ann Allard and I was like, "I want you to be my mentor. I know that, it's not official, but you're unofficially my mentor. I wanna be like you." So, she just laughs, and we've just grown our relationship from that one thing of being a part of the committee with her, right? So, there's just opportunities there if you're not afraid to ask. Number 1, open your mouth and say, "Hi, I'm Susan. So nice to meet you." Or it's really simple steps that we overthink most of.
Yeah. For sure. You mentioned, your mentor giving you, like one word a year or something, which is interesting because it's something that I've started building into like a couple years ago. My own leadership style, meeting with my teammates and stuff like that, is every single year, I give them a word, right? To like
Yes.
write down on a piece of paper, put it on their monitor or whatever. And it's not hypercritical. It's just like something that they should focus on that I think that would be
Mhm.
beneficial for them. And I was talking to someone earlier this year and they're like, "Well, who's doing that for you, Jordan?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "You know what? No
Oh,
one." And so this year I did the opposite. So I gave my employees a word, but I also had them all give me a word too.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
what's really funny is that they all came back with something very similar.
Really?
And I'm like, "I'm not sure if I should be taking this personally
Oh,
or," but it was good. It was like a really good exercise, and so I have it written down on a piece of paper right here on my desk.
I like that
And
idea because I've learned that, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 years ago in my career, someone introduced me to that concept of picking a word for the year, and, like, I think last year it was intentional, like, her was
mm,
just really growing at the time, and I had just started with AmTrust, and AmTrust was new in the West, so all these new things, and it was intentional, but I like how you've twisted that, and I'm gonna have to bring that back to some of my managers and say, "Hey, we need to do this next year." We'll pick a
yeah.
word for you, you pick one for us, and
It's equally as important for a leader to know how to grow,
yeah,
And
I
so
agree.
almost everyone chose a word similar to like the word pause, basically because I move so fast. And so I need to slow down and explain things better and
Oh,
help
I get that, I'm like
help
that too.
guide people. Yeah, yeah. So it was a good word. And so I have it written down and I look at it every now and then and try
Although
to remember it the best I can.
when I first started teaching social media to large groups, like all the realtors at Keller Williams and the associations, it was in 2008 when it was so new, and I remember I would be teaching it and I'd speak too fast because 'cause I'd get so excited about it,
Mm-hmm.
And I would have these older people, a little older than me, and they'd be like, "Hold on," and they would raise their hand and they'd be like one guy was like, "What's Hotmail?" And I was like, oh, whoa, we need a beginner class for you," but that's when I learned to have other people walking around so they could go and answer questions as I kept talking, but it's so true. My problem is I get so excited sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Same.
I talk really fast, and then they're like, "Wait, what? What did you just say?" And, like, processors or, like, green personality or escrow officers, they don't operate that way, like, they're very calculated, and they need to see everything before they can assess
Yeah.
the situation, and
Right.
yeah,
Which is
learning
their own strength too.
yeah, learning
They balance us out for sure. Going back to the industry, what gives you optimism about where the industry is headed? So we talked about, how it's a little, antiquated in some ways and, we need
yeah.
there's a lot of room for improvement, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited about our future. Like I feel like some people are really scared of technology or AI, especially, and I am excited about that because I feel like it's only going to make our product better, and it's going to help. Like I know examiners, for example, they were very worried when so much technology and social media and now AI was going to take their jobs. And I think not if you're continually learning and you're leaning into that, right? And you're learning as much as you can about AI and how it can make your job more efficient and you can be faster, then it's going to propel you versus holding you back. And I think it's just a shift in your perception of that. And so that gets me excited. I love learning about all the AI and all the new technologies and all the new, like, I'm a marketing geek. So I love learning all
Mhm.
the stuff that I can,
Same.
right? And part of her was like, it was a challenge for me to be like, hey, I have a master's degree in marketing and communications. I can do this. Why don't I do more of it? Right. I'm going to prove to myself that I can do it. And I think that it's just just, just going for it and jumping in there and doing it. Right. I was at the American Escrow Association
Yes.
and, Sam Trimble spoke, and he's
Mhm.
always fabulous, right? He always has these great ideas, and he shared an app called Suno, Suno, and whenever I'm in a class like that or at a conference or a land title association, I always try to write down at least one thing that I learned from that speaker, right? And that was one thing that I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna try it right now." And so I did, it's a music one where it create do you know what Suno is? By chance? I don't know if you've heard of that.
Mm-mm.
SUN and you can basically create your own song for someone. So I created a song for at that conference. So Mary Schuster it was our first time actually meeting in person. Like, we had talked and known each other through the industry, but through email and phone calls, right? We'd never met in person. And she was doing our panel, emceeing our panel that I was on. And we connected instantly when we met, right? And then she got married that weekend in Vegas. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many cool things happening with I was and she made me feel so welcome after being on family leave and going through, like, a really chaotic time in my life. So, I had just come back, and that was my first conference just a couple weeks ago, and I was like, "Thank you for helping me feel comfortable and confident again after being in a hospital for 2 months, and now I'm coming back." And I wrote her a song. Like, you can go to ChatGPT and say, "This is what I wanna say for this person," and it will just come up with lyrics for you, right? And then you go into the song and you put the song and you pick your genre, you pick what kind of, just tone and feel you want to it, and you add a couple things, and it spits it out in, like, 2 minutes. And I was like, "I'm just gonna text her that to be, like, my thank you for how that experience went for me." And she was like, "Oh my gosh." I go, "I'm gonna try." I always try to, actually do what I've learned in a class, at least one thing, and that was my one thing. And I was like, "Just trying it out on you, Mary." She goes, "That was really cool." Like, I loved that, to actually take that step further and actually try the different things that you're learning in the classes. So that's how I see AI. And that was a lot of words to say. That's how I see AI. That's how I see marketing. That's how I see our industry evolving as it's more, I feel like it's a lot more personable. It has a lot more heart than maybe when I first started in the industry, right? I think that and that's probably more culturally too. Like, I think that in business, this is you stay in this lane and you do it this way and
Mhm.
you know, push buttons or you just do what you're told, right? And I don't think that that's necessarily the case anymore. I think that you can do more, say more, offer more solutions, different ideas. It's more accepted now than I think it was when I was younger. That now I think that leaders look at that more so in a different light. That how can it help us be more efficient? How can it help us, get more title exams out or whatever policies out? And if you change that perception to think of it that way, then it's exciting, right? It's exciting to see where we can go with it and how many people can just bring more people into the industry and see what a great industry it is. Because once you get in, you're like, oh my gosh, this is actually a really good industry. And at first, the
Yeah.
10 years, I was like, I don't know if I belong here. Like, I don't know about that, right? And then you start to realize so many good people in this industry that really have good hearts, and you can express that more now than I think you could before. If that makes sense. So
Yeah, for sure. If you could get every title professional listening right now to make one mindset shift, what would it be?
I would say confidence and trying to overcome your fears. Like, I know men have fears too, right? They just don't verbalize them as much as women do, because we're the talkers. But it helps us to become more confident and over things if we talk it through. Where men are just like, whatever, I'm just going to ignore it and move on, right? So I would say just being confident and not letting fear hold you back, because I think in everybody has a fear somewhere, right? And fear only takes you into a dark place where if you focus on the positive or the good things or whatever, then and make that a practice for yourself, then it's going to help you so much more. Like, just a couple weeks ago, my I was talking to my sister on the phone with her and her husband. They were both on the phone, and he said something snarky to her, just being sarcastic or whatever. And then he said something to me, and I go, "Yes, that just made my day." And my sister was like, "No, he was making fun of you." And I was like, "I'm gonna take it all the way to the next month. I don't care. I don't have to take it the way he meant it. I'm gonna take it the way I wanna take it, and you know what? I'm just gonna look at the positive. I'm gonna look at no fear, no, none of that stuff. Just focus on what I can control and focus on, because you can always perceive it however you want to, right? And it can either be your own prison or just a flourishing opportunity for you. And so I think through my experiences of things I've been through in my life, I've learned that because you can be in misery. You can choose to be in misery no matter how hard your situation is at the time, or
Mhm.
choose to just be like, no, my life is great. This is awesome. I'm not going to let fear stop me. What is that going to do? It's just going to keep me from opportunities and from meeting new people and things that could really add value to my life. So,
Yeah, very well said. I agree. Before we wrap up,
yeah.
Susan, I want to give you the floor to tell people about her title collective, anything you got coming up, and where they should go if they want to connect with you or get involved.
Okay, yeah, sure. So if you want to get more involved, we're always, looking for people all across the country that they want to nominate a woman or a mentor that really helped them grow in their industry. Send them to us, email us, and let us. It's an honor for us to be able to share their stories because who else is going to do that, right? Who you don't get those opportunities very often, I should say, right? And it's beneficial for both sides, the person that nominates and the person that's nominated. And it just builds our industry and makes it better. So I think that you can share my email. You can also follow us on Women of Title or Her, the Title Collective on any of the social sites. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, what I forget, Facebook. We're on all of
Mm-hmm.
those as well, and you can connect with us that way. But if you have a story to tell, or if you want to start, let's say this next year you're going to start writing more articles, or you want to start a blog, or you want to really grow yourself in whatever that is, start coaching or mentoring, we're open. Come and we'll be happy to, create a platform for you to be able to do that. We have the platform, and just allow us to share it for you. And I think we are all learning that we're closer, even though we're all competitors, like I'm with AmTrust, we're closer than we are apart, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
Like, I think that you don't have to be enemies or avoid people from other, companies, because I've
Mm-hmm.
learned over my career that most of the people that I've been in my village or that have been a part of close to me have been my competitors. This is what's happened. And then people switch and change all the time,
Yeah.
right? And so we all have something of value that we can share for each other. And there's plenty of business and opportunity for people to grow, and if you have the desire to do it. So on those two fronts, I think that's how I try to present myself in all that I do, and just create a space for other women and people wanting to grow in their whatever wherever they're at, creating that space for them, that safe space for them, and a place to be like, "Oh my gosh, I can do this," right? And you'll have cheerleaders there right there next to you, So, and you can connect with me. You can share my email if you'd like,
Sure.
susan.stewart@amtrustgroup.com. But yeah, would love to connect with everyone and anyone that wants to grow in that in any of those realms.
Yeah. Community over competition. That's what I always say.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like it.
Susan, thank you for this. If there's one thing I want people to walk away with, it's this: it's that you don't need permission, a promotion, or a title to start leading. It starts with one decision, right?
Oh,
Start where you are. Thanks for tuning into Title Talks, and catch you next time. Thanks,
awesome.
Susan.
Thank you.